Well, this morning we said we'll take a look at the education sector, and we're dwelling on some highlights from the Ministry of Vetting as President nominee Haruna Idris will reveal some 345 million Ghana cedis to be set aside to fulfill the free tuition policy for first-year students in public universities for this academic year, as well as expand and complete all outstanding TVET projects left by his predecessor. And we're taking a look at this. But even as government seeks to expand TVET access, Executive Secretary of CLOSAG, Isaac Bampo, has come under fire from the TVET division of the Public Service Workers Union for calling on the President, John Dramani Mahama, to scrap technical vocational education training agencies from the civil service. CLOSAG is saying that they duplicate functions of the civil service. And so let's get the conversation going. Our guest joining us this morning, we will speak to Dr. Peter Anti. He's Executive Director of the Institute of Education Studies. We'd also speak to Mr. Thomas Musa. He is the General Secretary of NAT. And let's start with him, really. Sir, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Do we have Mr. Thomas Musa online with us?
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. So
yes, please. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. Now,
yourself and to all your listeners and viewers too.
All right. Now, before we get the conversation started, we want to put some data out there. Mr. Musa, we can hear you loud and clear.
Please, can you
hold
hear
for me? Yes, Mr. Musa, we can hear you. Please hold for me. We have some data we want to walk you through before we go. Now, these are coming from the Ministry of Vetting yesterday, and we have 3.2 billion Ghana cedis. That is for the capped get fund, and when we uncap, we're looking at 7.9 billion Ghana cedis.
So I recall the nominee talking about how, if it is uncapped, we would be able to get the 7.9 billion Ghana cedis, which would then allow the Education Ministry to do a lot more when it comes to get funding. And if we move on from there, he also says uncapping the GET fund will free about 4.7 billion for the educational sector. Of course, that is from the earlier slide, the 3-point-something billion versus the 7.2 billion, and that will be the difference. Then he also spoke about free tertiary education and the 345 million for 125,000 students. You recall when he was spoken to about what exactly the plan was for the first years and implementation for tuition, and he also made mention of this point.
But let's speak to Mr. Thomas Musa and get his thoughts on this. What was your initial reaction to the announcement of that 345 million being allocated to implement free tuition for first-year students in the public universities? Initial reaction, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I think that regarding paying fees for those the first-year students at the tertiary education, it is not something that it is a step in the right direction. It's a step in the right direction. But the question is, who pays for it? The Ghana National Association of Teachers, we have consistently been talking about something. How do we fund education in Ghana? That has always been the question. It looks like we always tend to focus on the expenditure side. That we will do this, we will do that, we will get this thing done, we will pay this, we will pay that. As I am speaking to you now, we are owing WAEC. We have not paid. We are owing the school feeding caterers and the food supplies and all that. We are not paid. At the SHS level, those supplying the food, we are owing them. We have not paid. Capitation grant is in arrears for over 2 years. And then when you go to the education and the regional, both the district and the regional education offices, we are owing them. The government subvention is also not going. The question is, why are these things so? So if we are adding the first year university students, it means that we are adding to the expenditure side. The question is, how much do we have that we are adding onto the expenditure? So we need to actually, as we are discussing the expenditure side, we must also be able to look at The income, how do you call it? Our income side. Look, as you were running through that we intend to uncap the Get Fund, it's a step in the right direction. But the question is, why was it capped in the first place? Why was it capped? It could be that there were other issues that there were there could be them, not me say there could be. There are commitments made by the previous government regarding this particular one, and consistently we've all heard that regarding the Get Fund, it is almost blocked. It's like a no-go area. Commitment has been made even into the future regarding Get Fund. So is it the case that that money, that 4.7 billion we are talking about really exists? It is an issue that, I mean, as time unfolds, we'll get to know. But for the Ghana National Association of Teachers, we have always said, now where we are now, we need a dedicated funding, or we need funding for, how do you call it, pre-tertiary education in Ghana. So that
Mr. Musa,
those
are you saying that, Mr. Musa, sorry to interject, are you saying that given the current economic challenges plaguing the education sector, this policy is not financially sustainable?
We can only guarantee the sustainability when we know where we'll get the money from. We can only guarantee that. Look, the reason why the Ghana National Association of Teachers, we asked for the review of the free SHS was the fact that we said instead of going by the equality principle, let us adopt the equity principle. The equity principle says that give to each person according to his needs. There are people who don't need to go to school free. They can even pay for the. I remember when I was at I was attending PTA meeting at Augustus. When we go there, the PTA chairman will come and tell us that look, these are the needs of the school. They need tables, they need power, they need what? One man can even get up at the time and pay for the things. These are the things we are looking at. Right. We have also proposed that where we are now is that we need to make sure if it is the case that we can look at maybe getting some, increasing the VAT more by a certain percentage, looking at the property rate, the oil heritage fund that we are putting in place, and other sources to be able to show up the income aspect of it. But consistently, all that we hear is the expenditure side. It is just a matter of time, because I believe that when we meet at the consultative forum, we will need to seek for explanation how we intend to fund this thing and also ensure sustainability. It is key, because the Bible even tells us, who is he that is building a house that will not sit down to estimate the cost, how we intend to finish the building. Otherwise, you start it and at the end of the midway, you run short of resources. And I don't think that's the way to go. And finally, let me give this proverb in Chi. He said that so in as much as we all believe in the free SHS, some people must pay for it. And so that the poor can benefit.
Right.
Yes.
Please hold for me. Let's usher in Dr. Pitanti into the conversation, and he's Executive Director for the Institute of Education Studies. Doc, thank you so much for joining us. Mr. Musa obviously thinks there are some challenges that need to be addressed in terms of where the money will be coming from before we can talk about the sustainability of this free first-year tuition for students in Ghana. What was your initial reaction to these announcements and on the back of that 345 million being allocated for this policy?
All right, thank you very much, and good morning to your viewers and listeners. I think that I have indicated already during the manifesto period that this policy is not a sustainable policy. It is not a policy that the NDC can run through even for the first 4 years of their tenure. And it's simply because, yes, we all agree that there's problem with people's ability to access admission and then pay for their fees when they are giving the admission. We all agree that it is not 100% the case that everyone that gets admission into tertiary institutions is not able to pay for it. You look at the data, roughly 30 to 35% are normally not able to go to school because they don't have the financial background, the financial will to pay for their fees. So if you have 100 students and 35 will not be able to pay, Why go ahead and pay for all the 100? And this is the same question that we've asked when it came to the free senior high school. I don't know why our politicians do that. So yes, they will be able to do it this year, but going forward, if they want to ensure policy sustainability, if they want to free more resources to be able to do the things that they want to do in the education sector, I think this is one of the things that they need to quickly redesign. And what do I mean by redesign? They need to push that money to the Student Loan Trust Fund. The problem is that people access the loan and the money delays. That is the problem. So if you are able to reorganize the Student Loan Trust Fund in a way that students are able to access the loan 2 weeks before reopening, as soon as they get the admission letter, like they do in these foreign universities, you get admission letter, there are a whole lot of financial assistance that are made available to you. That is what I'm thinking that the NDC should be looking at. So they can do it for this year, but going forward, they should be more prudent with the usage of our scarce financial resources and ensure that they restructure the student loan trust in such a way that it solves some of these problems that we want to solve with that kind of a policy that they are going to implement.
Okay, please hold. Let's also bring in Mr. Kofi Asare is Executive Director for the African Education Watch. Thank you so much, sir, for joining the conversation. It looks like both Mr. Thomas Musa and Dr. Peter Anti disagree that this policy is sustainable. What is your initial reaction to this?
Good morning. My name is Kofi Asare, and I work for Africa, not African Education Watch.
Thank you.
Yes, I'd also want to believe that social interventions must target to achieve equity. Okay, but it's a brilliant idea to seek to remove financial access barriers, tertiary education, especially financial barriers that exist within the 2 weeks that a prospective student obtains the admission letter, and they have to make payment to fulfill the conditions of admission. Now, that conditional offer lasts normally 2 weeks, and if you're unable to get your money, you lose that. And so, for us, that is the student's greatest point of view, or the prospective student's greatest point of view. At first time, that student is not a student yet. I mean, that prospective student is not a student and cannot even have access to a student loan. So
Mr. Asare, unfortunately, we can't hear you clearly. Could you speak up a bit? Maybe it's... Are you... Okay.
I'm actually shocked.
Right. Let's try again.
So having a policy that seeks to remove that initial financial barrier that pays for your admission academic facilities fee, which is the condition precedent to your accepting the conditional admission, is key, and it's a brilliant initiative. However, we all know that there are many students who are unable to go to tertiary because, not just because they can't pay their academic facilities fee, but they also cannot pay for accommodation, or they cannot also fund their recurrent cost of living on campus. Edward estimates that about 15,000 is spent a year in educating a Ghanaian in a tertiary institution, in the public space. So, in view of the fact that we have significant financial barriers beyond the academic facilities fee, it is important that efforts be made to target this policy going forward. When you target it, the benefit is that, assuming 140,000 students are going to tertiary, if you are able to target it and you find that through the means testing, only half of students require that support, the meaning is that instead of each student getting 2,760, they will get about 5,000 cedis. Then you are achieving more and more and more and more equity. You are giving more to those who need more and less to those who don't need that much. That is all we are calling for. So we are singing the same song that FS and the same song that every civil society organization minded about equity and bridging the inequality in our society would sing.
Well, thank you, sir. And I'm here with Benjamin, who'll come to you shortly. Ben, it looks like nobody's in agreement that this policy is sustainable. We should look for money.
No,
we should confirm.
I didn't talk about sustainability.
I'm getting there, sir. Please hold for me.
Targeted, but I didn't talk about the sustainability. The policy is sustainable because the minister has indicated that he intends to uncap GET Fund and use some of the proceeds of GET Fund to support the policy. That is sustainable financing. Uncapping Get Fund will ensure that in 4 years, 50 billion instead of 20 billion, if not uncapped, will be available. And so there is no issues in my lens about sustainability once you uncapping Get Fund to provide that 350 million needed annually to support this policy. So for me, once you identify a reliable funding source as Get Fund and you're uncapping Get Fund, it is not an issue about financial sustainability. It's about
Kofi,
prudent spending and then value for money.
Kofi, sorry, we all know how we get funds into the Get Fund, the different mechanisms we use, and capping it for other reasons has resulted in many different issues on the financial level. Do you feel this latest attempt at uncapping the Get Fund itself, do you think that is sustainable? That, you know how political actors, every now and then when things get tough, they may cap, then use the funds from there to do other things, apart from what the Get Fund is meant for. Do you think it is sustainable to uncap it for a long period?
Well, I think it is possible to uncap Get Fund forever. And it is possible for that thought of capping Get Fund never to emerge in our thoughts again. Because that decision is the single most disastrous decision that was taken by the previous administration. And we demonstrated against that decision every year before the budget was read. Let me explain this to you. Get Fund is more or less an earmark fund. Earmark funds are earmarked for purposes. Okay, best known to Parliament. Reason why the funds were established for those specific purposes.
Right.
So if you uncap any earmark fund, i.e. Get Fund or NHIL, what you are doing is that you are diluting the very essence of earmarking the fund for a particular purpose.
Right.
And so we shouldn't even have a conversation about future uncapping or capping. It shouldn't be part of our conversation. Because even when Get Fund is uncapped, it won't solve all our problems. We will still need more money. So we shouldn't have a discussion about whether it is possible to cap it or not. Without a capped Get Fund, we run the economy. If you ask the previous finance minister, what did he use the capped Get Fund money for? You will not get a response. And so please, Get Fund should be uncapped and forever.
Right.
The conversation should not be had about capping Get Fund again.
Well, easier said than done. But thank you for those comments. Let me also bring in Thomas Musa. What is interesting is that the Education Ministry has probably the biggest budget in government. You know, every now and then you would realize that the Education Ministry has the biggest budget. Thomas Musa, as far as this Get Fund issue is concerned, what's your position? Because then it's more resources going into education to deal with, for example, the 2,800 schools that need fixing due to overcrowding. And in some instances, maybe by extension in the education sector, not necessarily Get Fund, schools under trees and the rest. But uncapping, is it something that we can sustain forever, like Kofi Asare says? Thomas Musa.
I still maintain that sustainability should be the issue. And funding basic education in Ghana should be our focus. Look, I have asked a question. Why was the Get Fund capped in the first place? Why was it capped? It has to do with the fact that there were commitments already that are being made. And we have to take care of that one. Because any government that comes in, you take care of both your assets and liabilities. So to the extent that you take care of both assets and liabilities, you will have to take care of it. So even if you uncap it, there are other questions, there are other challenges, or there are other commitments that Get Fund is entangled with, which will have to be tackled. Look, if you pick the 100%, and my brother Kofi Asare is aware, if you pick the 100% of, the budget that comes to the Ministry of Education, almost about 90% goes into payment of wages and salaries. And if you look at that one, you have only about 10% that goes into goods and services. And you just pick the analysis of payment. And Kofi has done some work there. Let him tell us. If you look at the payment, for example, the release of funds, and that is why capitation grant in a year, sometimes you will see the figures in there, but the release, it will take sometimes 4 months, 5 months, 10 months. In 12 months, the money has not been released.
Right.
These are the things we are talking about. So when we are saying sustainability, even if they uncap it, our commitment our investment. Because look, we are adding the first years of the university to it. Nobody is saying that it cannot be done. It can be done. But who pays for it? Who should pay for it? If we have money, why is it that capitation grant is in arrears for 2 years? Is that what we want? Why should capitation grant be in arrears for over 2 years? Why should we be owing a WAEC if we have money? Why should we be owing the caterers that are feeding our children? Why is it that we have not even the school feeding program? We have not even extended it to the JHS. Why have we not done? Why have we not done so? Why is it that the education office and the regional education offices, the government salvation that are doing? Is it that it's a deliberate thing that we will deprive the poor people who go to the basic schools, the government public schools, those resources? So we have a concern. Our concern is that let us run the equity principle. Let us run the equity principle. Those who can pay, like Kofi himself indicated by accepting that fact,
right,
as indicated by myself and Dr. Anti, so that we can get it done. And we still maintain that the challenge here, the fact that the debt fund is on cap, cannot guarantee that funding will be available. No.
Okay.
It is not a guarantee, because but history has taught us that we have seen it on several occasions. Yeah.
Hold for me. Let me bring in Dr. Peter Anti.
We think that.
Right. I think I get the thrust of your point. Let me go to Dr. Anti now. You've heard, and it appears we've lost Thomas Musa one more time. You've heard Thomas Musa, speak passionately about that point, that uncapping the GET fund itself does not mean that certain resources will go where they ought to go. But let's look at the 2 million Ghana cedis also to be provided in pursuit of FQ, free compulsory universal basic education, which we have in our constitution, okay? And he also has the measuring rod of the fact that we've introduced a free SHS without having dealt with the F-cube related matters, which is why, whether we've put the cart before the horse or not, we have to address the basic issues getting into free SHS. My question, will these 2 million Ghana cedis suffice in bridging the gap?
Yes, I think that it's a good observation that the minister designate made, that we have challenges at the basic level. We've not been able to achieve universal access to basic education. And then we introduce free senior high school. Of course, you will not want to wait till you achieve universal access to basic education before you introduce free senior high school. But it's a good observation. That means that his mind is also at the basic level, and they plan to do something at the basic level. I think that finding resources to improve our basic education is non-negotiable, and putting out such an amount and dedicating it to improve universal access to basic education is something that is commendable, and we should applaud the ministry. Most of us have complained about the state of our public basic education, especially. A lot of people are now or always would want to tilt towards the private because of the quality resources and quality infrastructure and quality education in terms of monitoring and supervision that are presented there. The same thing can be done in our public basic schools if we provide the needed resources, if we give them the needed assistance and provide the needed infrastructure that every individual who wants to access quality basic education would be glad to have. I think we'll be able to make a headway, and that money is sure money that will help deal with the challenge at the basic level. But let me take the discussion back to the free first year challenge. I think that we should be very careful in this country how we go about policies, and for me, if you want to ensure sustainability of a policy, you have to ask yourself, to what end would this not happen if I am not introducing this particular policy? we are very clear in our minds how this problem come about. And we know that it is because most people are not able to pay for the admission fee. Let me make this observation. Now, people are already in the schools. How did they get the admissions to get in the school? There are those who are still struggling to raise their money. So it tells you that ideally, not everybody would need that kind of money. You have a student loan trust fund that is poorly managed and is collapsing. You have this amount of money that can be pumped into the student loan trust fund and then restructure the student loan trust fund in such a way that as soon as you get your admission letter, you present it and you are given the kind of financial assistance that you have. That is a more sustainable way of using your resource than to throw money away to everybody because you have made a campaign promise.
Right.
Again, that 70% that will be left can now channel into infrastructure in our universities, in our tertiary institutions. That is one of the biggest challenges that the universities are having. Some people are ready to pay, but infrastructure is not there for them to be admitted. You as a government will have to think around this and know that you can save money from this 300 and something million and then provide or continue to provide infrastructure in these universities. Again, you are capping get fund. You are going to get money there. My brother says that is the sure way to sustain the policy. I think no. We have a lot of get fund projects that have been left abandoned. Go to the College of Education. You will see those projects left to rot. Why do you want to use this money to pay for admissions for somebody when the person can pay? Whilst your infrastructure in our colleges of education are rotting out, that is a prudent use of that is not a prudent use of financial resources. And I don't think that anybody should be happy for such a policy. So for me, if the NDC will listen, fine, first year in office, you need to fulfill your promise. But as they move into their second year, their third year, their fourth year, they need to rethink this policy because it will come back to haunt them. All
right. Interesting points made so far. Sweetie, one of the points that stuck out for me, this bit about 26,000 schools not having changing areas for girls when they need, hygienic areas and we understand at that time of the month. That stuck out for me. I don't know whether it caught your interest as well.
And also that 2,800 schools that need fixing, but also tied to whether we're on capping or capping get fund, getting funds to, sponsor this free tuition fee for level 100 students and all. He also sort of prioritized completing all the abandoned TVET projects and all that, which is another issue on its own. But I'm just concerned to, what's his name? Mr. Isaac Bampoado has been saying in terms of TVET and duplicating their responsibilities and all that. What do you make of it, Dr. Peter Anti? Mr. Isaac Bampoado is saying that TVET, COTVET, they all although they were created to maybe, specialize in technical and vocational education, they're saying that it is also the same role that the Ghana Education Service is playing in terms of what GLOSAC is saying. What do you make of it?
Well, I think that there was a peculiar challenge with our technical education, and I've written extensively about some of these challenges. One of the biggest challenges of our technical education was the disjointed kind of institutions that were all offering some sort of technical and vocational education. Now, how did the previous government sought to deal with this particular challenge? What the previous government sought to do was to now bring all these institutions under one body and name it the Ghana TVET service. TVET service, the TVET service. So like the Ghana Education Service, the Ghana TVET service. And that has given room for direct supervision and direct monitoring and then allocation of funds towards technical and vocational education in this country. The kind of revamp, the kind of improvement that we see in our technical and vocational education is because of this singular kind of attention that has been given to TVET education. Again, in terms of their certification, those days you have to do part 1, part 2, write so many exams. Now their certification has been smoothing in such a way that right after your the technical education at the secondary level, you can enter into your technical university. I think this is what the TVET service has come to do, and I don't think that anybody should be worried about the work that they are doing. If we want to, and as the minister designate said, if we want to reduce unemployment, we need to fund technical and vocational education. We need to put or push more resources into technical vocational education. And I think that one of the ways to do that is to ensure that it has its own structure and lane that have been created by the previous government. That structure and lane should be kept and should be improved so that we'll be able to expand our technical and vocational education and get the right attention for it. So okay. I don't agree with Mr. Bampo. I think that sometimes we need to think beyond the numbers and see whether this kind of arrangement is achieving some kind of results. And of course, you agree with me that a lot of attention has now gone to technical and vocational education as compared to previous years.
Mr. Thomas Musa, what gaps, if you know, what gaps in the TVET infrastructure and policy must be urgently addressed to meet this goal? The goal of prioritizing, completing TVET projects and all that, yeah.
Yes, so let me make it easier. You see, earlier on, both the Ghana Education Service and the technical schools. In fact, we had the technical schools and the Ghana Education Service. And in some of the schools, we even gave the name SecTech. So when you go, you can either do the secondary education, which is purely normally about that bookish thing, or we call the cognitive aspect of learning. It doesn't mean that the technical aspect, but the technical aspect also do more with the psychomotor and all that. But along the line, the concern that came up was that where we even have the SecTech, it looks like the secondary schools tend to dominate the technical schools, and the technical schools are not recognized, although doing the technical programs are not recognized. And for some also, the thinking was that they are looked down upon and all that. And so it became, the concern started growing. In Ghana, when you go and do technical education, you are not respected and all that. Number two, the second challenge that confronted the technical education was a career path. You see, when you go to a technical school, there is no career path. There are some that will go to the technical school, they will tell you they want to go to tech, but by the time you get that you do Mother City and Girls, whatever it is, they will tell you, look, no, we don't know this, we don't know this. So career path became one of the challenges, it became a challenge that confronted the technical education in Ghana. The last one, if I may add, was the disjoint between the technical education and industry. The disjoint between technical
I think we lost Mr. Thomas Musa. He was just talking about the gaps that exist in terms of TVET infrastructure and policies that must be urgently addressed to meet the goal of the minister-designate, saying he wants to prioritize completing all TVET projects that have been left by his predecessor. I don't know if we have Mr. Musa back with us. He's still, oh, right, we don't have Mr. Musa. Let me throw that to Dr. Peter Anti. Yes.
Kofi Asare, maybe?
Yeah, Kofi Asare. Sir, thank you for staying with us. So, about the gaps that exist in TVET infrastructure and the policies that might be urgently addressed to meet the goal of prioritization, what should we be focusing on? Well, I think we have to try and reconnect with Kofi Asare, but Thomas Musa is back. Thomas, if you can hear me, please continue and conclude on your trail of thoughts for me.
Yeah, so like I was saying, so because of this time, we have to decouple the TVET from the Ghana Education Service, give them all the needed resources. So where we are now, the kind of investment that has been made, it will be quite difficult to go into reverse. So please, to where we are now, I think we need to get it done well so that all the students that are in there, now they have been given a career path, that they have their own scheme of service and all the career progression and all that, they are addressing all those. So I think that is where we are. So, but to scrap it, I think we have come too far, and the kind of investment we have made in it, scrapping it is not the way to go.
Thank you.
I mean, moving on from the TVET end of things, TVET, I believe, if you look at any country that has developed technical vocational training, is integral from France to any other country you would look at, the Scandinavian countries. But coming back to issues like pedagogy, curriculum, you would hear the sector minister talk about the fact that there would be a review on all fronts at all levels of education. While I agree to some extent about reviewing our education, because some say it is not fit for purpose in the global village we find ourselves, some also say that this tweaking every now and then of our curricula and our pedagogy does not bode well for our education. How do you respond to that? Mr. Musa, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Yes, that's for you, sir.
Yeah. You see, the biggest challenge we have is that education normally will take you no less than 10 years to see the returns on your investment. But it looks like every 4 years, we have turned education to a political football. There is serious instability at the education ministry, and particularly the kind of teaching, the curriculum we are dealing with. Serious instability. Number two, we don't provide resources to help us, teach the curriculum. I have just told you, how do you get a curriculum? Look, every employer, you have three main duties. You have to employ a competent staff. Two, provide them resources. Number three, supervise them to get the work done. So if you employ teachers, there is no infrastructure. As we are speaking now, go to the school. There are get fund projects that is getting rotten all over the place. We have not completed them, we've left them. Capitation grant is not going. How can the curriculum be implemented without resources? So we have curriculum there, the resources to get these things done, they are not there. And so you realize that then another 4 years, a new government to come and tell us that this is the way education should go. Then we will go back and come to square one. No resources, and the kind of investment that must be done, we are not doing it. Education is capital intensive. Let me give you this last example. Yesterday, I listened to the Honorable Arun Risu. And during the question, I heard the education minister tell me education is capital intensive. STEM case is capital, particular kind of curriculum we are talking about. So the difficulty is we keep on changing the curriculum. We give the curriculum so much instability without providing the necessary resources and all the things that are needed to get it implemented. So that is our challenge. And so long as we are on that particular path, believe you me, we will not make any progress as a people. And remember, I always tell the politicians this. The World Bank has told us as far back as 2018 in their Human Capital Index report that if care is not taken, 56% of our human capital will go waste because of the quality of education we are giving to our children. So, number one, the curriculum needs stability. Number two, the moment the curriculum is ready, resources must be made ready. We cannot bring curriculum when there are no resources to implement them. We are joking.
Right.
We have to be serious in getting education done in this country.
Right.
And we should stop turning into a political football. So every 4 years, it becomes a political football. We play. Then at the end of the day, whoever wins, we will go back and believe you. Look, we are in 2025 now. In 2028, but we will come back talking about the same thing. And we think that is not the way to go.
Dr. Anti, how do we curb this vicious cycle, if you like, of changing our educational system? From the Gettysburg era to independence education, it was sustained for some decades, and then we started tweaking, and in this Fourth Republic, it's just been tweaking en masse. Dr. Anti, how do we resolve that issue?
I think one of the things that I said before the minister was vetted was that if there's any area that he should not think of going into, that is the curriculum area, because we have had an extensive review. We've done the standard base at the basic level. We've done the common core at the junior high level, and we just started implementation of the senior high school standard based curriculum. Why would you want to go and review it? For what? So I think that, you see, there are more pressing issues that should engage his attention. I agree with Mr. Musa that he should focus on providing the needed resources to augment the implementation of the various curricula that have been developed at the various levels. We know at the basic level there's a lot of challenge with the resources. And because of the lack of resources, the principles underpinning the curriculum have not been well implemented. If you go to the field and you are studying the implementation of the curriculum at the basic level, this is one of the things that will come out. The pedagogy, the mode of instruction, the kind of activities that teachers are supposed to undertake in the classroom are not the ones that they are doing because they don't have the resources to enable them to do that. The atmosphere is not conducive for the teacher to implement all those interactive pedagogies that they were taking through. You want teachers to do differentiation. The atmosphere is not enough or conducive enough to ensure that the teacher attends to the individual needs of the students in the class. If I am given the opportunity to advise the Minister of Education, this is what I'll tell him. You need to now focus your attention on provision of teaching learning resources and creating conducive learning environment at all public basic schools and senior high schools in the country, so that there will be a smooth implementation of the various curricula that have been developed for the various levels of our education. It is not time for anybody to now go back into the system and ask for a change or a tweak of the curriculum that we have already implemented. Curriculum normally would have to live its lifespan. The basic school is still 6 years. We are almost going to 6 years next year. You might want to look at that and do some innovations in there. The DHS has run the first 3 years. You might want to look at that and then see whether, evaluate it to see whether there's a need to go into that. But the senior high school just started. It is just not even 1 year old. Why would you want to even touch that and do anything with it? So for me, the focus with education sector in terms of what the minister said about curriculum and pedagogy should be provision of more teaching learning resources and maybe retraining of our teachers in terms of the 21st century pedagogies that are available for teachers to use. Those are the areas that we can use to enhance the provision of quality education and not get another group of people to go and revise a curriculum that is yet to run its full course.
But Doc, review does not necessarily mean change, does it? Because there were so many parents had their own issues with the current curriculum and, you know, the review and everything that we are practicing right now. So reviewing does not necessarily mean they want to change anything there.
Yes, review. That is why I said that you can do innovation. So we have what we call curriculum innovation. So you can tweak parts a bit of it. But I'm saying that before you can say that you're going to review something, there should be a report that indicates that these are the implementation challenges. These are the ups and downs of this curriculum that has been implemented. The basic school standard-based curriculum has run its full course, or will run its full course next year. That is the 6 years of implementation. You will now need to commission or engage the implementers, who are the teachers, and find out what are the challenges with the implementation of this curriculum. Based on that, you can now proffer some solutions and do innovation. You don't do a complete reform, which is the aspect that most of our politicians will be looking at. And I've told you that if you do research, we will speak to the teachers at the junior high school level, at the basic level, the most challenging issue is the provision of resources and conducive atmosphere to implement the objectives and the goals of the curriculum. Those things are not there. So instead of you to wait or put some money into going to review this, first provide the needed resources to the teachers. Provide them with adequate training, retraining, use their PLCs to retrain them. You can organize other kinds of workshops through NTC to retrain them so that they are abreast with current pedagogical issues in the area, and then provide them with the teaching learning resources that they need to be able to deliver.
Dr. Anti,
the curriculum.
you're saying first do this, but they can be done hand in hand, side by side, can't they?
No, you cannot say that the objectives of the curriculum has not been realized because the teachers are not teaching. They have not been realized because they don't have the resources to implement it. So unless you have given them the resources and they are not implementing it as it has been stated, it will be difficult for you to use that as a yardstick to review or do the kind of tweaking that you want to do. So you need to first do the first thing first. Give them the resources. Give them the additional training that they would want to need. Create opportunities for them to advance their knowledge in recent pedagogies. And then allow them to now implement the curriculum in the way that have been provided. I tell you, if you pick that curriculum, even the one at the basic level that had a lot of challenges, there are so many good things in there that if the teachers are implementing as those who developed it want them to, you will see a drastic change in the delivery of education at the basic level. They are not doing so because they don't have the resources, they don't have the conducive atmosphere to do that, and also they are not well motivated. Tackle those things first and see whether they will not be
made on that
in the delivery of education there. Yes.
Point made on that. My final bit to both of you as we wind down on the conversation. Sweetie may come through with just another bit. But Thomas Musa, I also hear the education minister saying, and I'm asking, is he biting too much? I'm not saying more than he can chew, but is he biting too much, for starters? Because he says, as far as STEM education is concerned, there are going to be model STEM schools, in fact, one per region at least, starting from kindergarten to the tertiary level. And of course, that's a great thing. In fact, he says to senior high level, from kindergarten to senior high level, which is a good thing. But do we have the resources? Can we do it? The former education minister, Dr. Educhum, had started something, especially in his area. What do you make of that, Thomas Musa?
So thank you. Let me come back. Let me get back to what, in fact, I need to express our gratitude to Dr. Auntie this morning for this valuable contribution that he's making. You see, in the public schools, the curriculum is designed to serve or to take care of three main areas. We call it the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor domain. Now, at the basic level, we have what we call pedagogy. And once we are dealing with pedagogy, the learning must be what we call child-centered learning. And the child must learn at his own pace. So if the child is in class 1, and the child must learn at his own pace, and you have given the curriculum, then the resources that must accompany the curriculum is not there. And by the time you provide even resources, the child is in class 2, that we have lost that particular child. Because the kind of concept the child must learn in class 1, by providing resources, because the resources were not provided in class 1, the child crossed from class 1 to class 2, the resource didn't come. It is when the child got to class 3, before the resources came, we have lost that child. And the concept that the child must learn,
the child doesn't get it.
Unfortunately,
I think we are losing Thomas Musa there. Let me throw that same bit to you, my final bit, Dr. Auntie.
That particular concept. And
okay, I think we're still struggling with the connection to Thomas Musa. Dr. Auntie, quickly on that point, what is your take? Dr. Peter Auntie, do we have you?
Yes, I'm here. I was hearing Musa talking. So please, the question again. So
basically, the project STEM, basically STEM model schools, one per region, kindergarten to free SHS. We are talking about a lot of things, but in terms of the cost of this, are we taking on too much? Is this administration taking on too much?
Yeah, I think they can do that. The blueprints have already been laid by the former Minister of Education, Honorable Educhum. So I think what the current minister would have to do is to build on that. Ideally, I'm not a fan of model STEM schools. I think that we need to incorporate STEM in all our in all our educational institutions. That is the concept I believe in. But if that is the model that they would want to go, get a model STEM school in every district or constituency or whatever they would want to do, I think the blueprint is already there. He can tap into it and do modifications and ensure that that promise is carried out. But we should not go on the tangent of dedicating specific schools for STEM. I think that every school needs a STEM.
But you should start from somewhere, right? You should start from somewhere, and based on what you see, then you build on that. Does that not make sense?
And that is why I will not completely write off this suggestion to start the STEM model school. So if they get the resources. So you see, get back to my problem. There are so many things that you would want to do, and yet the little money that is going to be made available to you, you are spending it on things that technically you shouldn't be spending on, like paying for everybody in the first year. So the minister, I think when he settles down, he will think through some of these things and then find ways and means to deal with it. And lastly, let me make this point. You see, another challenge even at the basic level when we implemented the standard base was the introduction of what we call the National Standardized Test, the NST. The NST was designed to ensure that we provide remedial measures for students that are not catching up with the standards that are set for each level of the student. These things have not been done. We have not been able to implement this to its latter to ensure that we are monitoring the students' performance and providing remedial measures to ensure that students who are not getting up to the standards are catered for. You are not doing all these things, so you don't get up to review the curriculum. Please get the basics right, ensure that everything is provided, and see whether the curriculum is implemented as it was supposed to be implemented. If not, you can move on to the other things that you would want to do.
Doc, we're grateful for your time. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. That is Dr. Peter Anti. He is with the Institute for Educational Studies. We also had joining the conversation Kofi Asare, and of course, he's Executive Director, Africa Education Watch. And we also had Thomas Musa of the Ghana National Association of Teachers. All of them joined us for this conversation. But there's something we have coming up tied to that self-same conversation, sweetie. Yes, you know, even as government is seeking to expand TVET access, Executive Secretary of GLOSAG, Isaac Bampo, has come under some sort of scrutiny or fire from the TVET division of the Public Service Workers Union for calling on President Mahama to scrap technical vocational education training agencies from the civil service. Now, GLOSAG say they duplicate functions of the civil service, and we want to talk to Mr. John Sampa. He's Acting Deputy General Secretary at Public Service Workers Union of TUC. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Now, GLOSAG is arguing that TVET agencies duplicate functions of the civil service. Do you agree or disagree? And what evidence supports your claim? Please unmute for us, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning to our listeners. I have also listened to the previous conversation, and I associate with all the contribution from Comrade Musa and also Dr. Andy.
Right.
I should say that the concern of the Public Service Workers Union, the division of the Ghana TVET service, is the fact that while we are all talking about emphasis on skills delivery and employable skills to our youth, we strangely received a call and an urge from the Executive Secretary for the President to consider scrapping or abolishing TVET education, also because he said it was duplication. We disagree with him. TVET education did not start today. It has been in existence many, many years ago, over 40 years ago, 45 years ago. We have had these TVET institutions scattered across different ministries, some of them under Employment Ministry, Social Advance under Civil Service. Every ministry you go, you will see TVET education. And therefore, it was not properly placed under Ministry of Education for proper supervision, resource allocation, taking good care of staff, and making sure that it is well coordinated. And that is exactly what all of us in the TVET industry have advocated many, many years ago. And of course, we have all these institutions merged up in 2020. And we think that it is a good thing. And we were very happy, or I was very happy yesterday when I was listening to Honorable Haruna, when he said that he's rather going to expand TVET education. Because if we train everybody in the grammar and there is no skills, how do we develop our country? How do we industrialize our country? So we think that call was misguided, it was misinformation, and
right.
But it's interesting, sweetie.
Rather expanding and making and making necessary investment in TVET education.
Benjamin here, you call it misinformation. That's what got me interested. Is that to say, I mean, he's your executive secretary, right? Do these conversations not percolate? Are these not conversations that are had internally? Because it appears you, the members, are standing on one end and your executive secretary is saying something completely different. How did that happen and why are you calling it misinformation?
Okay, so of course we have different unions that operate in the different sectors.
Right.
CLOSAC and Dr. Bampo operate mainly in the civil service. The civil service is not Ministry of Education. If it was Musa that was talking about this, I would say that he's a subject expert in that area. And I think that maybe he misunderstood TVET education. TVET education is not today. It was not started 2020. It was just fragmented education scattered around different ministries that have been put together under Ghana TVET to be well coordinated under the Ministry of Education. And we think it's a good direction and it must be applauded and rather more investment made in TVET education.
Okay, sir, please hold for me. Let's do this step by step. Are you saying that civil service does not house the Ghana Education Service?
Okay, so the civil service does not house the Ghana Education Service.
Right.
Ghana Education Service is under the Ministry of Education. The civil service is in charge of government machinery. And under one of the department, social welfare, they have some small vocational education. That cannot actually constitute a good percentage of education. And of course, the civil service don't regulate education in Ghana. So the proper place to be placed is the Ministry of Education. And so all the various different ministries that had small vocational skills, they have put all of them together into the Ghana TVET.
Right. So please hold there for me. Now, both the GES and the TVET, so everything that you just said, they are tasked with overseeing teacher training and curriculum implementation in technical education. Is that correct?
Yes, please.
Yes. So is that not a duplication of roles?
No. So under the Ministry of Education, we have two main agencies. We have the Ghana Education Service that I would say primarily focus on grammar education. And we have the Ghana TVET Service that deals with vocational technical training and more of employable skills. So they are both supervised. They are two major agencies now under the Ministry of Education.
Just a quick one, Mr. Bampo, or Mr. Sampai, I beg your pardon. Is there any point where there is some duplication that we can realign? Now, I get the distinction you are bringing to bear, but are there any gray areas where we could fine-tune better and remove any excesses or hive off excesses, as Isaac Bampo says?
For now, I do not see at all. What we rather need is to make more investment and make a lot of youth go into TVET training. All of us are going to the secondary school. When we finish, what percentage get access to the tertiary or the universities? At the end of it, how many people have skills that are matched to our industries? So the focus now is rather TVET education and making sure that many of our youth that complete school without any skills are going into TVET. They are getting employable skills that when they finish schools with the necessary infrastructure, they can even start their own business without necessarily getting employed.
And do you feel maybe this will help with the situation with NEETs, especially young people who are not in education, training, anything, who are not employed, not in education, not in training? Will this TVET help in that regard?
Yes, TVET will help in that regard. And that has been the situation all the time. In those days, we had the National Vocational Training Institute that was placed under Employment Ministry. And I'm happy that Honorable Haruna Idrisu was once minister and he supervised over that. So we have ISES, we have many other vocational schools placed different ministries. Now that we have put them together, and in fact, because they were not placed under education, the budgetary allocation to the education ministry, the GET fund and other resources that is to be spent on education could not be utilized on them because they were not under the education. Now, the Minister of Education will know that I have grammar training, I have TVET and employable skills, and under TVET, we also have apprenticeship, where there are people who may not necessarily be too much inclined in the writing or too much academically inclined, but they can use their hands to learn something. And all these people are coordinated. So now people that are learning trade apprentice, all of them, under the Ghana TVET service and under the division of the apprenticeship, there is room for all these people, and the government now is providing supervision through the Ministry of Education, and that is the way to go.
In terms of the cost involved, now be that as it may, that you're trying to differentiate the role of GES and the role of TVET. Are there not some roles that are overlapping where we can consolidate these to save money? Because at the end of the day, running parallel agencies, we are bearing the cost of all this, are we not? Is there a way we can consolidate some of these agencies into one under one big umbrella? Not exactly, what he's saying, like scrapping it. Is there a way we can do that?
Thank you very much. And that is the reason why I agree with the Honorable Minister when he said that he would do stakeholder consultation, and where there is necessary, there will be review. We are all ready to participate in that process and to make meaningful contribution. But if there is any duplication at all, it will rather be complementary. Also because the Ghana TVET or TVET education did not start 3 years or 4 years ago. It has started over 45 years ago, except that they were scattered at different ministries. Okay? I am actually a product of Ghana TVET. I attended the then NVTI, and they were supervising skills training. And the police, the military, the fire service, they were all employing these people. So it is just a matter of bringing them together, enriching the teaching and learning and the welfare of the staff, and making sure that we have them sit under the right place, the Ministry of Education, with a sole responsibility of the minister, taking care that whether you are doing apprenticeship, whether you are doing grammar training, whether you are doing technical training, you are supervised under the Ministry of Education.
Do you think that the people involved, the students, parents and all that, they understand clearly what these different agencies do? Or is there a need for us to actually create awareness and educate the public enough about what you guys do and what GES and all that, what their roles are?
Okay, so what we need now is to enrich the policy, making sure that we give enough resource allocation. And we must also engage stakeholders, and we must let every Ghanaian know that TVET education is the way to go if we really want to industrialize our country, and that we cannot go to China and other places to go and bring craftsmen, but we need to train the craftsmen in our country and use them.
John Sampa, thank you. Ben, do you have...
Well, I guess this is where we'll have to draw the curtains on the conversation. But it is clear then, in your final words, that your disagreement with your executive secretary is a sharp one, and you are hoping that the president does not heed this request, right?
Thank you very much. That is it.
All right. Thank you very much, John Sampa, for joining the conversation this morning. And maybe just to wrap in the studio, education back on the table. And like I said, every time there is a change in guard, a change in government, you would see some of these things come up. Some for the positive, but sometimes it's too much touching something that may not necessarily need that much work. There are some areas where a lot of work has to be done, but only time will tell what review becomes and how some of these issues are addressed. But technical vocational education training, no matter how we choose to address it, it's going to be one of the crucial areas, because, you know, the erstwhile administration also started ramping up on TVET with the CTVET and all of that. I think some continuity for about 10 years will start reaping results.
In fact, we've seen a lot of improvement. These schools, Accra Technical, all have been turning to universities, and they're churning out brilliant students who are not only fit for technical roles, but can also take up roles that those who went to public universities went to. But let's see how it goes in terms of review and all that. But do stay with us. When we return, there's more action on the AM show.